Golden Boy here, and welcome to Latinx and on the mic, where we talk about casting and hosting in esports, of course, presented by my friends over at G4. But thankfully, we have some great people that are joining me here today, folks that I love very much because they've been a part of the industry in such incredible ways. And before I get to that, I'll just introduce myself. Golden Boy, I commentated stuff for a few years and done TV stuff and all that other things. This isn't the greatest intro, but it ain't about me. It's about the people who are here contributing to this here. And let's go ahead and start off. We have a first up co-owner of XSET, okay? Co-owner. All right, probably one of the only, I'm fairly certain, and of one of the only women and women of color, I believe, working in this space, as well as Hostess Supreme. We got Aaron Simon. Sorry, I don't know if it says Aaron Simon on Zoom. I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. Aaron, don't kill me. Is that fine?
You're good. Aaron Simon. Honestly, at this
best
point,
intro ever. Nailed it. Anyway, what's up,
you got it.
How you doing? You good?
I'm good. Thank you guys so much for having me here. Like Golden Boy said, my name is Aaron Ashley Simon. I co-owner of XSET. I do broadcast work within esports and gaming across the board. In terms of the work within that space, I've been working for like 4 or 5 years about. But however, even though I look like 15, 18. I've been working in media for 11, 12 years. I started when I was 17 years old, worked in sports, music, and now in gaming.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, it's that beautiful Latin glow that we all got, all right? Because someone tweeted me the other day and said that I'm probably a vampire because I look the same way I looked 5 years ago than I do today. I disagree wholeheartedly. I think I look considerably worse, but I'm just going to go with that narrative for right now. Also joining us is another host and esports caster and newly signed on to the G4 train with his show Face Check. We got Digon. How you doing, buddy?
Hey man, it's a great day and great to be here. I'm Daniel Digon Gonzalez. I am half Filipino, half Honduran. Identity has been such a huge thing for me, and representation specifically in our genre of esports and gaming I think is huge. So anytime we have the opportunity to come together and just really hit on some important topics and share our different perspectives is always a great learning opportunity. So I'm glad to be here.
Man, you nailed that intro. You should be hosting this panel. I think I'm going to just wrap it up. And then finally, last person, someone who I love dearly, a good friend of mine, the one and only hostess on the LCS, a caster as well, probably one of the best ones in the market by far. We got Latigris joining us here today. Gabby, how you doing?
I'm good. Golden Boy, you're always too kind to me. Hey, everyone. I'm Gabby, aka Latigris. As he said, I'm known primarily nowadays for my work on the LCS as a host. I also cast and have done so for several years now. I've had the pleasure of working with everyone on this wonderful panel in various capacities. So I'm excited to be here and get to celebrate our heritage.
Yeah. And in case you're wondering where all my hair went, Gabby took it all. So there you go. She stole all the hair. I got none of it. Nothing's here anymore. But let's actually dive into our careers and where we started. Gabby, we'll start with you. I know your career very well, but let's go ahead and share it with the audience. How'd you get started? What was what were some of the challenges you faced out of the break, and also like how did you feel your background prepared you for all of this?
Yeah, sure thing. So basically around 2014, I was graduating from university and undergrad. I have a background in performance as a competitive speaker for 8 years during the collegiate and high school circuits, and then studied broadcasting, TV, film production in undergrad. And then after that was like, what am I going to do to bring all the things I love into one space? And that is when, for the very first time, I watched the NALCS and EULCS, now known as LCS and LEC, and immediately fell in love with it. I was like, oh my gosh, I love gaming and I love broadcast work. This is how I can bring it all together. Let's do this. So I started my journey in pursuit of that. Had no contacts whatsoever in industry, knew nobody, knew nothing, and was just like, well, here we go. So started making content, streaming, creating videos. It was one of the videos in which I showcased enough personality with my terrible, terrible, terrible cosplay of League of Legends characters that this guy said, you know what, I'll trust you when you say you can do hosting things. Come on over to this amateur league we had where Degon was a part of that as well. He was one of the casters there in the Serpentis Pro League, and we were kind of all getting our reins there, putting that work in. I decided to go to grad school alongside of that and just say, hey, I don't really want to do grad school stuff. I want to do esports stuff. And then talked about esports the whole time. And started casting some card games and duelists during that time. Then somebody sent me the link for a high-res show called The Caster, in which there was a casting call to be on this competition to be a caster for their titles in Smite and Paladin. So I taught myself how to play-by-play. Golden Boy was one of the judges on that show. So that's the first time that I met him, when he got to do all the heavy, you know, real looking at what I was bringing to the table. So I did that show. I ended up winning that show and worked at High Res for a full year, where I focused mostly on casting and hosting. After that year, I decided to go freelance and joined Character Select Agency, where I focused a lot on trying to work on a lot of different titles and really develop the skills. And then at the end of that year is kind of when it came full circle. Riot had discovered me through a collegiate broadcast and brought me on to do some work with them. And I was play-by-playing that. And then they brought me in to work on their collegiate championship. And then from there, decided to bring me onto the LCS team. So since then, I've been back in the home of League of Legends, focusing on that, hosting on the stage, been working on casting a lot in the play-by-play capacity lately as well, on Proving Grounds and beyond. And that's kind of how I ended up here today and got to meet some wonderful people along the way. Worked with Aaron during Cheddar Hits a lot of times, covering league stuff before I actually joined the team. So yeah, like I said, really great to see everyone here.
Kind of wild. So your career started and ended, or not ended. Your career is still going, I imagine. Your career started and continues onward here. This part of the story, this chapter with League of Legends. But it's incredible though along the way, and a lot of people don't realize this, is that esports is a very small space, and you are going to run into a boatload of people. And I'd say out of this, I've worked with you, Gabby. I've worked with Aaron. I have not worked with Degon before, but we all rolled within the same circles. And you'll see that narrative continue because there's just a lot of connections that happen between all of this. And it's kind of like, you know, for those of you wanting to get involved in the industry, it's a very small space. So just recognize that and always share that love, that positivity for video games and esports, because you never know who you're going to meet, you know, around the corner. And I guess that brings me over to you, Degon, because you have you actually, you know, worked with Gabby briefly, right? But you've also had your own journey up until this point. Why don't you cue us in on, you know, into that?
Yeah, same kind of journey where it started in college, where you started realizing, hey, I can make an organization and figure out community, right? Because I think for all of us, gaming has been a place to meet people, to learn about oneself, to be competitive and grow both in wins and losses and experiences. And so I was part of the founding membership group of the Virginia Tech, we called it the gaming group at Virginia Tech, GGVT. And so we founded that. It was I remember our first meeting was super cool, where we had like a couple of football players, basketball players, like sorority, like computer lab guys, a bunch of people from all different walks of life that played all different types of games too. And we brought different consoles, and I was like, wow, this is what I want to do, to be able to use the skill set that I have to bring people together with this common language of games. And you know, it wasn't always just competition. So from there, I got away from it a little bit. I spent a year played soccer overseas, and then I spent 4 years doing cybersecurity in the government. But during that time, I was constantly watching esports, Dota 2 at that time, and League of Legends, and then applied after about 4 years to join Riot. And I was the host in 2017 along with Dash. It was best of threes, and that was great, but that ended very quickly because it went from best of threes to best of one, so I had to figure it out and bounced around over at the Golden State Warriors for their League of Legends team, did management there and helped run the team, so I got hands-on experience on the back end. And then after that, I was freelance hosting, and it was a little scary because I was like, maybe this is something trying to tell me like, hey, we tried this thing in LA, we tried esports, and maybe that's not the case. But a friend of mine convinced me to just stick with it. And next thing you know, Twitch Rivals, Vainglory World Championship, PUBG Mobile, Collegiate League of Legends, which brought me back to Riot, which was really cool. And then during that time, got connected with a lot of the other members in the League of Legends space and created a couple talk shows. The one known now, Face Check, is pretty big and has been a lot of fun, but it's then led to just kind of being an esports person and a gaming person. So then I have to stay up to date across multiple different titles so that you can speak to multiple different communities in their language and in their ways, so that you can be the connective tissue no matter what types of walks they come from, because at the end of the day, the connective tissue is the gaming community. So as long as you know the different gaming community, then you can have that entryway into having a conversation with someone and really seeing who they are. So
yeah, very well said. You know, like there is that common bond for all of us, which is games, right? We love it. And then for a lot of us, you know, we went even further with esports, and then not every, like no one esport is the same, right? Like they're all different. So to keep yourself up to date, to keep yourself informed, it's a very challenging thing to do. I know. That's why I look like this. Aaron, over to you though, my friend, because you have had an incredible journey in this space as well that has led to some history making moments, I'm sure, not only in esports, but in your life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's so interesting because I didn't really plan to be in this space. Prior to that, like I mentioned, I was within traditional media. I really was heavily within sports and music and traditional TV and print and digital and so forth. And what happened was there's a turning point in 2018 where a company I was working for, CEO made poor decisions and a lot of people got laid off, including myself. And then from there, I kind of decided, like, you know what? I want to be a broadcaster. I've always worked behind the scenes. I was always pretty solid in front of the camera. And I was always intrigued at the when it came to the cultural intersections of various different entertainment industries, whether it's music and gaming, TV and music, and so forth. And so I've always been a gamer my entire life. And I was like, you know what? No one's really talking about some of these cultural intersections, whether, you know, it is diving further into hip hop and soundtracking when it comes to gaming, or just the cultural nuances of the fighting game community and how Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic are so heavily invested in the scene, but not many people know about it as much. Like, those were things that I was always intrigued about. And I was like, you know what? I want to talk more about this. So one of my friends who now works for T1, we worked for a media publication. I started writing about it. And then eventually from there, the NBA started their 2K league, and I covered it. And then eventually they asked me to host a show for it. Then from there, shout out to Amanda Stevens. She introduced me to several of my former colleagues from Cheddar. And it was at that point where I was like, listen, I know you guys are looking for a host. I know gaming, I know culture, and I have a lot of experience when it comes to production, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes. And eventually I got that gig, and that was my first entry into esports. And just over time, I just really worked at providing just a very holistic viewpoint of esports through that show, and really showcasing so many people, which of course, many of you were on that show as well, providing your perspectives when it comes to esports. And, from there, when we looked at overall esports, from a broadcasting, just someone having multiple conversations, I just felt like there were various different pain points that needed to be addressed, and especially when it comes to the Latino and Hispanic community. And so more recently, I've made a bigger transition into being, like you're mentioning, co-owner for XSET. And so because of that, I no longer do esports broadcast really because, for me, that's a conflict of interest. But I'm still heavily, keeping up with all esports because it's so interesting when you work for an organization. It's a very unique perspective that you have to have. Not only when it comes to, keeping up to date with patch updates and everything like that you do in traditional broadcasts, but even a lot more of the business side on the back end and just really paying attention to different talent, different pro players and so forth. So it's been really interesting to see that. And with that change, I'm now more so focusing when it comes to general gaming and still holding true to that cultural intersection between like entertainment, gaming, and esports. And from there, it's interesting because I think that we all paved our own unique lanes without, I don't think this is anything that some of us really planned for our own unique lanes. It just so happened. But I think it's great that, the Latino Hispanic communities and the representation that we're providing is growing vastly. I think, we all are people that we wish we saw growing up, and now we are the representation and role models for those within our community. And so all of that has really driven my decisions to be a co-owner for XSET, my decisions to really tap into other markets and area that are interested in gaming but are not vastly in. So while, you three are really focusing on esports and the hardcore fans, I'm really trying to work on, in terms of the broadcasting side, really just bringing more people in and making the environment more welcoming so people can really invest in this community, be a part of it, and want to grow with it just like we are.
Yeah, it's that very well said, especially, the part about like the kids seeing folks like us do this thing and hopefully that inspires them. I've been very fortunate, when I would go do like Overwatch homestand events or COD League or, Halo, that, kids would come up to me. They would say like, hey, I'm from your same neighborhood and I saw what you did. I saw how you were able to get out. I saw you were able to do your stuff. And it really inspired me to like, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm competing, or that's why I'm doing interviews or something like that. And after a while, it's just like you try not to think much of it because that there's a lot of weight that comes with that responsibility. But at the same time, you also know that you got to live up to that as well. And you need, and you got to give those folks the time of day to be able to help them out, be able to push them in the right direction. And I think that's something that all of us here have built our careers on. It's, like looking out for others and just trying. And really, when you think about it, it's kind of like the, Hispanic way, right? We all look out for our families and stuff like that. It's just how he is. But yeah, so that said, now the elephant in the room is the issues, the challenges that it takes to get to this point. I won't dive too far into it, but when I was on the come up, and this was very long ago, so a very different world than what esports is today, I experienced my fair share of racism. I had just assumed that it was just normal. Obviously, now knowing it's not normal. But that was something that was very common. I get a lot of threats. If I predicted the wrong team to lose an event, I would get threats, and the threats would immediately be about, my background or how I look and my appearance. And it was very challenging to kind of sift through that. But over time, I was able to do so. Digon, what were some of the challenges that you faced when you were starting out in this space, or stuff that you had experienced that kind of set you back?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had when you're talent, a lot of the goal is to again be the conduit between the game and the audience. So sometimes you get stuck into a lot of people pleasing and a lot of just looking for acceptance, right? It's like, man, I really hope I'm doing well, and not like, hey, I already know I can do well and I know what I normally do as well. And so an authority figure at one point told me, hey, we worked with you not because of your heritage and anything like that. We worked with you because you're good. And so it created a conflicting priority list of, hey, is it important that I'm providing representation and that I am being what I wish I had the opportunity to see when I was younger? Or is it just because I'm good? And so then sometimes it's like you have the whole question of, do we just hire someone because they're the best? Do we hire someone to give them the opportunity that wasn't there for them because of so many different life factors that come in, including inequality? And so that to me was pretty, it was just a very quick passing comment that for a while I didn't really think about it too much, but it didn't sit well. I knew it didn't sit well. And so the more I had thought about it, the more I'm like, no, this is wrong. Like these types of successes should be celebrated. Being one of the first Latino Americans or Filipino Americans or Latinx hosts kind of like leading the way for this second generation. Like that to me is an important thing, and it should be celebrated regardless of talent quality and all of that. Like that to me was just a very, very interesting point that has stuck with me, and I think about it all the time. And I worry that in the future people will be not thinking about that, maybe trying to hide it. You hear it a lot of the time in Hollywood. People will change their last name so that they can get more gigs, or work under a pseudonym because of preconceived understandings of it. And that was me in my whole like childhood. They would see a Hispanic last name, see very Filipino or Asian features, and then not even know that I'm half Latino. So it's like kind of like this whole bounce around. So identity is really huge, and people will try to identify you if you don't know yourself.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, like I still deal with this even to this day, being a host and a caster and getting hired for gigs. And there's always that one part in the back of my mind that's like, I know that I'm good at this job because I've been doing it for a long time. Sure. But also, and then it's that creep that kind of like pops up in the back of your head, and you're like, I know what I'm doing here for my work, to like successfully complete the job that I'm doing, the casting, the hosting, whatever the case may be. But there's always that glaring suspicion in the back of your mind, like, was I just a checkbox, or was I? But even if I was, I wouldn't let that stop me from putting the best show possible, because that is what I'm here to do, plain and simple. And I know that I have the skills to do it. So there's a lot of there's always that and Gabby, I guess this is a good place to start with you, because like you're now a host of the LCS, and the LCS has been adding more talent from different backgrounds as of late. I really wanted to get your thoughts, and also those challenges as well that you had faced on the come up to the point where you are right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a couple elements to it. For one, when I started pursuing this career, it was a very different change in environment, where prior to that, being part of a speech team, for instance, yes, I was in Kentucky where there's not a lot of diversity, but the people I spent the time with, we actually had a really diverse team, a lot of people of color represented. So going from South Florida to there, I was surrounded by a lot of people with more of an understanding. And then when I moved from there to Illinois and started pursuing this career and realizing, I'm not as surrounded by people that identify in this way. And, I even started doing things like listening to my home radio through iHeartRadio to get some of that like Latin music into my ear, because I was just like, this is a very interesting environment where there's a focus on my heritage, but in a different way, where it's kind of that, you're here and you're Latina, and how is that for you? But kind of in that way where instead of like a caring, yes, I really want to know, it's more of that, this is an oddity, and I'm, pointing it out kind of thing, which can feel very strange when, like Golden Boy was saying at the beginning of this, I come from the mentality of, I'm focusing on what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. I'm always focusing on trying to get better as a host, as a caster. And then, so when you get to platforms like the LCS, for instance, and there's always going to be an audience that are choosing their ways to either troll or critique. And I notice, with the larger audience, a lot of the go-to, trolling is about me being a woman or about me being Latina, and thinking, these aren't even related to my work that I'm doing. You're not saying anything about that. That is immediately what your attention is being brought to in a very negative light. And having that as something to kind of deal with and realize that, oh, that's just there. It's not going anywhere at this time. It kind of just seemed like this fixture. And I think that over time, it has gotten a little better, and like having other people come onto the broadcast, you know, we have more people of color, we have more women on the broadcast as well. And that does help a bit in having people that, oh, you kind of know what this can be like on a broadcast like this. But yeah, it's an interesting place to be where, you know, you have that pressure of, oh, you are the Latina here. What is that like? And being the only one, and what do people say to you? And kind of that, well, I don't really want to think about the, you know, the negative side. But that being said, there's been a lot of support as well. And I think I'm lucky to have people that are understanding of that surrounding me. So when you have a good support system, then it's easier to shrug off. Also, the tip of, if you ever go in that career, just click on the profiles of anyone that says those things, because likely you go and you see that they're just trolling everyone or unhappy about their life. So that's a favorite of mine now, to make sure to, you know, not overthink any of that stuff. But yeah, it's really interesting when you're in a career that demands a lot of your attention and energy to get better and focus on what you're doing. And then it feels like there's this other element that you're carrying with yourself, but can be a positive as a motivator as well. Just like Aaron was saying, being the people here to encourage others. And I think when I hear people say that, oh, I really love seeing you, a Latina, on the broadcast. And I've heard that from, you know, other Latinx heritage people, and saying that it means a lot to them to see somebody like that, that they can then look and think, oh, I can do that as well. And I mean, you've had many DMs from me in the past, just asking questions and things, like being somebody that I could go to in that way. So it is kind of a nice thing to bring in that way too, to be able to be somebody that can make that change and be an example for others that are looking for their avenue into the space.
Yeah, I specifically love the bit about going to the troll's profile, checking to see if they're a real person.
It's really useful. It's
because
really
there's
useful.
no way they're not. There's no way they're real, right? Like, it can't be. Jeez.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yes, very well said, and I totally agree with that. And I think that, you know, we know that there is a responsibility when you're on camera to present. That's why, you know, I always find it to be funny when folks are like, you know, this person's just a diversity hire. I'll see the tweet come in for a talent announcement, which I hate, by the way. Hate talent announcements. And, you know, they'll say something like that, and it's like, nah, dude, like, I don't know if you know, but I've been doing this for a while, and I'm kind of sort of good at my job, you know. But that being said, you know, Aaron, you have had. I actually really want to dive into the issues when the announcement of you being a co-owner of an esports organization, because I know that came with some kind of, you know, there's always people out there that are fishing for the negativity. So I want to try and see, what was that experience like? 'Cause that's something I'll never experience. You know, like to be an owner of an organization, a co-owner of an organization, to also be a very public figure, a host, all that stuff. What were those challenges you faced?
I think the challenges that I face is that while some people are able to like escape in video games, there's certain aspects of just life issues that I deal with that I can't escape. Regardless, I could literally, to be honest, regardless if it was the XSET announcement, the Puma announcement, or any announcement, right? The second I'm shown, someone calls me a monkey, someone calls me the N-word. Like, I can literally just not talk and go onto a broadcast, and it's already, I see racism. And so it's tiring, to be honest. It's very tiring where people don't even know the person you are and the character that you have, but yet have an issue with you because I'm an Afro-Latina. You know, it's crazy. I have to say, I have 3 strikes against me. I'm a woman, I'm Latina, and I'm Black. So automatically there's like this instant judgment by people. And it's a challenge because one of the things I'm very proud of, especially when it comes to XN and the broadcast, is like, I've realized over time that it is important for me to speak up on these issues. And even now, when I speak up on some issues, there are various people who constantly discredit my experiences because they themselves don't see it, or they themselves don't go through it. But I see it in my comments. I see it on Twitch, right? And it's just like, but I've realized over time that if I don't speak up and say things, then who will, right? I can't wait for others to do it. And if I have the platform to do so, I will. And if I have the platform to do what I can to change the industry standards to show that like, hey, you can have diverse talent and be competitive. I mean, we have one of the top North American Valorant teams, and we have, a pretty diverse, and we're going to continue to have a pretty diverse talent within our organization and staff within our organization. I think we're one of the very few staff too that has like about 10 to 11 talent and staff that are Latinos and Hispanic. And so for us, we're really, and for myself, it's like I really want to show that there's quality and people are qualified even when there's diversity, right? I think there's such a misconception that like diversity means unqualified, even though there are actual stats and proof that when you have diversity, profitability goes up for companies and tremendously. And so I try to really go through all of these obstacles and hurdles when it comes to just people not wanting me to speak up, not accepting me for who I am. And like I said, it's very tiring because not only do I do this in esports and gaming, I do this in my life.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like, why do I have to keep bringing these up? But it's important. It's important to bring these up. I think a lot of people don't realize how high of a barrier of entry for esports it really is. Like, not that many Black and Latin households have high-end PCs. Like, it's expensive to even compete and be in esports, and not a lot of people understand that. That's why you see the fighting game community and you see mobile gaming is more diverse because it's quicker access, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that the challenges that I constantly have to go through is just me being me. But I think that also adds a unique perspective for myself because, I am a woman, I am a Latina, I am Black. So I'm able to speak for these various underrepresented communities across the board and really utilize the tools and information and connections to help others within the community and just help people in general. I think that the more that we shine a light on not just the negatives, but the positives, and shine a light on so many different people and so many different growth points, right? I think that the better this industry is going to be overall. But it's honestly, like, Golden Boy, like, it's tiring. I don't know how you dealt with the racism like within the esports scene for like years upon years. So and to the rest of you, like, it's sometimes it's tiring. Sometimes I gotta get off Twitter and be like, I'm taking a week off. Like, this is too much.
I do that all the time. Shut down the app, no notifications, let's go.
So I think one thing that you brought up, Aaron, that leads to a really good formative like phrase that has helped me with a lot battling racism and working to help be a better beacon of light and hope and education for both those that are continuing the fight and some people that don't know better. Maybe they are blissfully ignorant. It's the specificity in which that you can speak to the different cultures. You said there are 3 strikes. No, you have 3 different I guess like boons of knowledge that other people don't have. Being female, being Latinx, and being Black, right? And so because you can speak to all 3 of those communities, you could speak to one, you could speak to one, you could speak to one, you could speak to 2, you could speak to 2, and then you can still speak to all 3. The specificity of the situations and of the cultures is what will help eradicate a lot of binary racist thinking.
Yeah. Wow. And you also mentioned another thing that is so, I don't think enough people in this industry understand this, is that I grew up, right? Not my mother was on welfare, single mom, 2 sons, taking care of them, went to college, did everything she possibly could to give us the life that she, did everything to give us, right? And we were very fortunate to have a mother that loved and cared for us. That said, we did not have a lot of money. And as a result, video games were limited to what was the most accessible medium at the time, the arcades, or if we were lucky enough, like, we got a console, right? I didn't get my first PC until I was 22, I want to say 21, 22. like my own first PC. Like everyone hears that and they're like, oh, that's so weird. I was playing PC games and it's like, yeah, and I'm glad you were, but that's just how it was for me. So I didn't grow up, playing all of the games. Like, I hear people speak fondly of games like Warcraft and stuff like. I didn't play that. I was playing Sonic Pinball because I couldn't afford another cartridge for the Sega Genesis, and that was the one that came with it. So like that was my life growing up, and that's the life of a lot of kids. So the bigger challenge is getting these types of games in their hands and giving them the tools to be able to participate, which is why honestly I know a lot of people dog on it, but I really do value Fortnite for what it did and kind of like bringing gamers from all different backgrounds together, because now like everyone, yeah, sure, controller versus keyboard and mouse, but you can still have some fun with PC players, mobile players, however it may be. So yeah, you hit so many great points there, Aaron. Thank you so much for that. And I guess let's move away from a little bit of the little negative and go over to some positivity and advice for the younger generation that is watching this right now, that is trying to get involved in esports. And Gabby, I'll start with you. What is your advice? And we'll kind of couple both of these together. What is advice that you would give to someone now that you would have loved to have given yourself, your younger self, years ago?
So as far as advice to my younger self, I think, and this is something that I'm constantly battling with, is balancing being extremely self-critical with building confidence. I think I am very self-critical, as I've heard a lot of talent, just people that work in the space are, I do regular VOD review. It's just the mindset I have, which I think is definitely a strength and something that I will never taper down. But you want to make sure to recognize your strengths for yourself as well and remind you of that, because when you undergo those times where you're getting unfair criticism, whether it is based on your identity or otherwise, I mean, people can just pull shiznit out of everywhere. You need to have that confidence in yourself, whether it's built internally or from those around you, so that you're not leaning too much into that criticism point. Because it's really a fine line when your desire to improve, and then you can start hearing that thing, you think, and start leaning towards that negative direction. You always need to make sure you have that balance. So that's something I'm always working on, that I wish I would have started working on earlier.
All right, Aaron, what about you? Not criticism. My God, advice that you would have liked to have been able to give your younger self, but also advice you'd like to impart onto this new generation of talent that's coming into the space.
Be okay with setting healthy boundaries and walk away from opportunities that do not align with you. I think that that's like one of the biggest advice that I've learned over time. And I think that like when you're younger, you're going to grind. And when you grind, you'll just accept anything and everything. And now, mind you, there's certain opportunities and situations where you have to weigh them, right? And in order to get your foot in the door. But when you get to a certain point, it's okay to say no. It's okay to pass on things that do not make sense for you. It's okay to set boundaries when it comes to people and letting them know, hey, I love your idea, but I have a process. Please contact my agent and respect the process that I have, and be okay with people getting upset with you setting those healthy boundaries, because, when we're on air and we're working constantly, it can be emotionally and mentally and physically draining. And you don't want that additional draining coming from social media. And in some ways we do have accessibility, but there has to be a boundary so that you can make sure your mental health is in good shape. And that is the most important thing. Plus, as you get older, like, you gotta rest, man. You gotta rest. Coffee does its job a little bit, but it doesn't do all that. So setting healthy boundaries is like the most important thing.
Yeah, stop and smell the roses, because a lot of people don't. Too many folks are so focused, Digon, on the hustle. It's just like, and look, it's in our blood. It's how we are, but it's important to kind of just take a moment, chill out for a bit. What are the things that you would have liked to have been able to tell your younger self that you want to impart onto this next generation?
I think it's just know what the core values are for you, right? So it kind of goes along with what Aaron was saying, you can figure out what to say no to if you know who you are. So if you know who you are first and what you're about, what are things that you like, what are things that you don't like, you know, what you represent, then it makes it easier for you to focus on a lot of the other things. And so for me, it's two. It's knowing who I am, who I represent, what I represent, where I'm at all those different things. So for example, something that I brought up is throughout my, I guess, my young adult life, I identified much closer with my Filipino side because on my Latino side, even though my mother was at home all the time, same home mother, taught us basic Spanish, I didn't speak the language enough. And so it made it much harder for me to connect with my Latino heritage and my Honduran heritage, a country that is consistently ravaged by military coup and poverty. However, that doesn't detract my Latino-ness or my Filipino-ness or my right to all that. I am Filipino, Latino, American. That is who I am, and that will never change. And so by understanding that, then I feel more comfortable to accept opportunities like Hispanic Heritage Month at the Real Rift Rumble that Team Liquid put on a couple of weeks ago, where I had the opportunity to celebrate Latinx culture through luchadors and through wrestling. And that was an opportunity I don't think would have crossed my mind probably about 3 years ago. And so by understanding who you are, then it allows you to figure out what opportunities that you do want to take and don't want to take. So that to me, I think is so huge. And it is always evolving too. You are constantly evolving. So you sit down, you ask yourself those types of questions, how you feel about things, and come to conclusions that are concrete at that time, but willing to change over time. So
evolving is a great word there. Because when I had started, one of the folks I looked up to, one of the idols I looked up to was Chris Puckett and DJ Wheat. Right, I loved all their work. Two of the biggest, and best names in the industry. Puckett from Halo, DJ Wheat from like you name it. And I saw their work, and I was like, man, I really want to try and do that. Right. So when I started, I was doing that. And the advice that I would give to my younger self, but also what I would give to the new generation that's coming into this world, is don't try to be somebody else. Because I realized that as I was doing this, it wasn't like fitting me. It wasn't fitting my personality and how I acted. So then little by little, that started to change. And the identity that I had you mentioned, Digon, about the Spanish and learning Spanish. I don't know Spanish. Okay, I just don't. I'm a typical New Yorican, a Puerto Rican that was family transplanted from Puerto Rico and squatted in New York City. And in order for us to integrate into the system, a lot of us didn't learn Spanish early on because we didn't want to get put into like bilingual classes and stuff like that, as is the case, Aaron, I'm sure in New York. And that I wouldn't say it necessarily set me up for failure, because it allowed me to be able to embrace so many other aspects of my culture and the heritage of being a Puerto Rican, and being a Puerto Rican in the Bronx. Also, it was just like a big eye-opening moment for me when I was like, you know what? I'm just going to roll up to this. I don't even know what happened. I think I just rolled up to an event, and then I was like, man, screw this. I'm done being all, hello, everyone, welcome. Screw that. I'm going to do my thing. And then as that happened, I started to see more opportunities come in, because folks were like, man, we love your energy. We love your personality. We love who you are. And I think that's going to be the advice that I give to the next generation, is embrace who you are, because you have a unique voice and you could do some pretty kick-ass things. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to curse here. My bad. But now getting into hosting and experiences, right? We have all had great moments. Aaron, what is one of your favorite moments in your career?
Oh boy, one of my favorite moments.
It could be hosting or otherwise. There's just a moment.
I think my favorite moment is when I became the the main face of Puma's first esports and gaming line as an Afro-Latina. I think for me, that was a very big moment. And one that like seeing my mom very proud of. I think my mom, growing up, my mom raised me and my brother as a single mother at one point. She's Puerto Rican. She's also Afro-Latina, and she's very sick and deals with a lot of illnesses. And so for me to show her the possibilities of gaming and to show her that, the representation that I'm trying to showcase within this space, and to be a face for something that is new and for a big brand like Puma, I think for me, that was like my greatest moment, and seeing my mom super proud and happy. Because at the end of the day, like, for me, family is more important. I would drop everything for family. And so I'm just so thankful and grateful and fortunate that, like, to be in a position now where I can help take care of my mom and help take care of my family. And it was like what you're saying, Golden Boy, when it comes to the Latinx and Latino community, we're all about family.
I think we lost Erin for a moment there. Not sure. We might get her back though. Don't worry. That is the perils of online broadcasting in this day and age. So we'll get Erin back in a moment. That's fine. Digon, I guess we'll move on to you and your favorite moment working in esports.
It's funny because this isn't actually a working moment. It was when I applied to Riot. Riot has a notoriously long interview process. Mine was 6 months. And after I got accepted, I put in my 2 weeks at my cybersecurity job. And in Virginia, when I was leaving, I was like, hey, I want to have like a going away party. And I saw people from all different walks of my life, whether it was high school, college, gaming, soccer, football, family members, charity events, come together and understand that, hey, I don't know this thing that you do. Maybe a couple of people did, like understood gaming, but I don't know this thing, what you're doing, but I know how passionate you are about it and I support you. And in that moment, what it felt like was I had done my job of being a conduit to gaming and to esports, to the closest people to me, to the point that they came out to an event to support. If I can do it with them, I can do it with anybody, right? And so I think that was kind of one of those grounding moments in understanding who I am, who I was, why I was doing this. And that was even before I even made it on any official broadcast at the time. I had done multiple travel gigs, but to have that moment of letting go of the full-time job of something else that is an important role in our country, it was not my passion and not how I wanted to utilize my skill set and to be supported and loved in that. Well, that's the kind of feeling I want to be a conduit to, with fans in their moments of gaming and esports, and to fans that are watching and being like, wow, that Digon guy, that's, if he can do it, I can do it. And I want to be able to help inspire the next generation. So.
Yeah. And now, Erin, we did lose you at the end there briefly. I did want to get you to wrap up your thought there. So you were talking about family and how important family is to you. And I kind of feel like there's this thread that, Digon mentioned, but also you're talking to as well. So I don't know if you had any additional thoughts you wanted to share on that part.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what happened, but
it's okay. It's just New York internet, right? What are you
guys? Listen,
I know all too
you
well.
ain't lying over there. You're not lying. Yeah, I think that like family has always been at the core of a lot of our families within Latinx and Hispanic communities. And that's something that is just so crucial and important. And as I was saying before, for me, family is everything. Like, I would literally drop everything for my family. And so to be happy to see that I'm in a financially comfortable space where I can take care of my family, especially my sick mom. For me, that's probably like the proudest moment that I have. And also, in addition to that, be able to.
Oh no, did we lose her again? I'm telling you right now. Here's the thing, folks. New York internet, down with the system. She's gonna be like, I cannot get this thought wrapped up. Well, okay. Let's get Gabby over to you though. While Erin hopefully joins us back in from her depths of silence.
Oh.
There she is again. Erin, I don't know if it's that the world just doesn't want to hear this. I don't.
You need me to run
know.
an Ethernet cable to you over there? I can hop on a plane. And
No,
try.
I have Ethernet and my speed test is fine.
Yeah.
I think it's just Zoom. It
Yeah,
keeps
it could
kicking
very
me
well be.
out.
Zoom doesn't
Online
like it.
environment.
Zoom, you know what it is? Zoom don't like the facts you spitting. That's what it is. Zoom can't handle these facts. But you know, I am gonna go to Gabby though here, and I do want to get your thoughts. Favorite moment in your career? You know, doesn't have to necessarily be esports tied, but what would that be?
I would say there's one moment I look back on quite frequently as being pretty grounding, and that would say the first interview I did on the LCS when I went there in the summer season of 2019 for a weekend. It was kind of, I guess, my audition time to see how it goes. And, you know, I went in with a lot of nerves and things, and I operate off of nerves, so I like to have them there to a degree, but, you know, you really internalize a lot of the pressure. You know, I work with and this moment helps me a lot as somebody who deals with imposter syndrome, who is told regularly that I don't belong, and always working past these ideas. I mean, even like I'm in the boat of I did not have access to gaming from young childhood until I was 21 years old, and then went hard when I did finally have my own computer and things. So I'm always carrying these things and thinking, oh, you know, I want to prove that like I'm working hard and belong here. And I always remember that first interview because I went and it was with Doublelift, who, you know, if you follow the League of Legends scene, is one of the greatest players of all time in NA. So you likely watched him, you know, while you're watching the broadcast. And I remember going to interview him. And for one, I did not think about how loud the crowd, because there was a crowd at the time, would be.
Crowds.
I miss them so much. I miss them. So maybe that's why I look back at this moment. So I remember going and Cass, the makeup artist, because he was on the other side opposite of where I was, said, oh, yeah, it can be difficult to get over there once the crowd gets up to go high five him. I'll bring you to it. And she grabbed my arm, pulled me through the crowd and onto the stage. And I didn't even have my IFB turned loud enough to account for the crowd. I was there and I saw and I thought, oh, because I'd been a fan so hard up until this point, never even got to go to an LCS show. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And I could feel the nerves take on physically, where I was almost shaking a little and had to like focus it into my foot, and was went to do the interview with him. And I had like went over it so much in my head that it was almost autopilot like, because I was focusing on just, don't be nervous. Don't let your mic hand shake. Don't let that happen while the close-up is on his face. Just get through it and all right. So at the end of it, you know, I end it and I immediately messaged my partners. I'm like, is that okay? Like my brain is kind of blank right now. I want to know like how it went. And I got a lot of positive reception to my first interview. So I look back at it a lot, one, to remember that, you know, I am a fan and that's why I do this. And like to relive that moment of when that first happened and get to look back upon that. And then the other was that realization, like, I do belong here. I earned my spot here. So when I do have moments of doubt and, you know, imposter syndrome hits really hard, thinking, oh my goodness, it's great to look back at a moment like that and be like, no, I worked my way here. I have the skill. I belong here. I deserve it. And I am getting to do what I love as a fan that now gets to work in industry. So it's very important to me to have those grounding moments to look back upon, even when the nerves are high and things, to kind of bring you to that level of, we all go through things, but it's okay. Remember those good times and the payoff for the work that you put in.
Yeah, I can imagine you on the stage with your microphone. This is a prop, by the way, and just be like,
oh, yeah.
Hello, Doublelift. What do you gotta say? And then your mic hand's just shaking and you're freaking out. You know, I vibe with that. I
like,
get
too
it.
much coffee. It's backfiring.
I don't know where I really have to pee. You know, like, there's just a lot of things that go on. My favorite moment from my career has to be the Overwatch League finals at Barclays Center. One, because I got to take a train 5 stops to work. That was sick. Like,
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
have to fly anywhere. You know, after doing the Overwatch League season and flying to LA and flying back and flying to LA, like, it was so draining to just be like, man, I'm so glad I could just chill out at my home, hang out with my dog, with my wife, and then I can go to work, which is great. But the moment for me was when they, you know, the Overwatch League had cut up this incredible package of the journey up until this point. And like there was this one moment where the, you know, at the end the doors slide open and you walk out, and and for some reason they trusted me to welcome them to the show. And then I make my way out there, and I recall my good friend Kevin, who he was the stage manager for the Overwatch League at the time. I had asked him, I was like, "Hey man, how's the crowd?" You know, like he was like, "Oh, you know, it's all right. You know, it's filling out in the areas you expect." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I was just assuming that, like, you know, maybe we'll fill out the floor seating and maybe the top dome, but you know, the rest of it maybe not, right? Well, I was wrong. And then as I made my way out, I saw the entirety of Barclays Center just covered with Overwatch League fans, and it was bonkers. I genuinely couldn't believe this, and I walk out and you could see my face, and it was like a pure amazement. And I get goosebumps even thinking about it to this day, because I was like, I can't believe that this is happening and I'm doing this right here. And that probably was the only time I was like ever truly nervous, because it happened. But like, you know, you go into autopilot, right? Because it happened right there, and then you're like, well, I have a job to do, so let me go ahead and do this thing. And then after that had concluded, I had set up my father, who, you know, he never really was too into the world that I was in. But then as I started to do more in like traditional TV space, he would tell people, "Oh yeah, you know, my son's on TV," you know, and he was always like really proud of that because he understood that aspect of it. But then he saw me do that in front of everyone, and then I ran up to the stands and then gave my dad a hug, and I just started bawling. I was just crying my eyes out, and then people were like taking pictures and stuff. It was a little odd, but it's cool because someone sent it to me, and it was like a moment that I'll never forget. Like, hug my dad, told him thank you for supporting me and all that stuff. So it was a really beautiful moment, and it's something that I truly will never forget. So you know, last question here. We have this question written down, and this is going to be a fun one. Is there an easy way to get into hosting? So let's start there. Gabby, we'll start with you. Is there an easy way to get into hosting?
I would not say there's an easy way. There are lots of rewarding
ways.
Yeah, to get into hosting, and every path is extremely different. I think that's one of the great things about the panel we have here. It's not everyone has a wildly different path of how they came into it. And so I think to me, it's always good to look at the people that are in industry to see their path. That's something that I did a lot when I started. Like, how did this person make it? How did this person make it? But finding the path that works for you, it won't be easy, but it will be the one that you belong on. I always like referring to advice that I got from Bob Odenkirk. I'm not friends with him. He was just judging his kid at a high school speech tournament, and I walked up to him in the cafeteria room. I was like, "Hey, you're Bob Odenkirk. Let's talk for a bit." And that was it. But he talked about the short version of it is always be doing something to move the foot forward, even if it's loosely related. And that's when I talk about all the content I made. Didn't get a lot of views, but I was putting all kinds of content out of there that was very not traditional, maybe even with hosting, but just to showcase personality, and then finding whatever path that is and then following through. You don't know when that opportunity is going to come. So chances are, you know, some people, maybe it is that first domino that falls and it really puts them down that path. But yeah, don't be discouraged if you come against opposition. I think everyone here probably has moments of rejection, plenty. They say, you know, every successful person in any of the very competitive industries has experienced rejection, and it's pushing past that. So yeah, finding the path that works for you. It's not going to be easy, but it'll be your unique path, and you will follow it, and that work will be rewarded.
Yeah. And Aaron, surely you must have the easy solution to get into hosting. Surely.
Tell me. I'd like
Tell
to
me,
know.
Aaron.
Well, let me see if Zoom allows me to answer this question. No, it's not easy. Anything that's rewarding is never easy. Whether it's broadcasting or anything else, it takes time, dedication, and consistency. And also, what I guess a lot of times is when we discuss like careers, right? Hard work, right? I think we all know that at this point, right? Working smart, though, is something that's not talked about as much. And I would say that it's not easy, but if you work smart, the journey is less bumpier and can get quite smoother moving forward in some areas. And I also agree with, what you said, Golden Boy, and also Gabby. Pave your own lane. It's harder to pave your own lane and do something that no one else is doing, but it's more rewarding when long term you are the only person that can do it the best, and you will get more opportunities that way. So don't be afraid to do that and set your own path and work smart when you're doing it.
Yeah, one of my favorite professional wrestlers ever is Eddie Guerrero, and he's a legend, world champion. Dude's one of the best ever. Now it's not necessarily one-to-one, but you can kind of see what he was getting at, because his whole thing was, I lie, I cheat, I steal. But the thing was that he works smart, not hard. And that is the value that I took away from Eddie Guerrero.
Let's go.
May he rest in peace. But like, I think that, but to that point though, Digon, like Eddie Guerrero was such a trailblazer in professional wrestling, because he was not a traditional luchador who would be, wearing a mask and doing, like what Rey Mysterio was doing or Mi Mascaras was doing, right? He was very much cut from a different cloth, and he inspired an entire generation. And now, moving to you, right? What kind of inspiration did you take away from that to set you on this path? And how is it easy to get into hosting?
Yeah, just also quick shout out to Chavo Senior and Chavo Junior.
That's right.
I also fought along with all of that Juventud as well. So
Hoovy.
So I think with if this is a path that you want to go along, it is important to know the examples. Like if we're just talking craft now, it's important to know the examples of what good is, because almost at all levels of hosting, people will do some good things and some bad things. At the highest level, they almost always do good things and make the right choices or unique and interesting choices that lead to very entertaining outcomes. But being able to identify what that is important. And so that means if you can do it, great. But even the best can't do it alone. So making sure you have fellow coaches, peers, mentors that can help guide you towards what good is. And then going back to my previous point of knowing who yourself is, knowing what good is for you. Yeah. That is probably the most important thing, because a lot of people might have the skill set to do it, but then they're kind of generic, or they are amazing personalities, but then don't have the nuts and bolts of hosting, of communication, of getting the most out of their guests. And so then therefore that one of those two sides are lacking. So making sure you have a tribe, a community that can help guide you to better in your craft, to get towards what good is so important, that is specific to you. So like make sure that you get that early on in your career, so that you're not having to unlearn a ton of things that now you're into refining.
Yeah, you guys had all touched on so many great points. And I think the only thing that I would add here is, Gabby, you talk about don't be afraid about self-critiquing yourself, or don't view that, don't look down. Digon, you said surround yourself with folks who will, look to empower you, look to give you, the advice. And Aaron, you're saying work hard, but, work smart. And all that is so important. And my advice will simply just be, just don't be afraid, right? Like, you have a unique voice. It doesn't matter if someone made something that is similar to the thing that you're looking to make. That person's not you. So they didn't make it the way that you would. and especially for the community that would be watching this, for Latinx gamers and people looking to get into this industry, you have a unique voice and a culture that gives you so much empowerment to be creative, unique, and add your own salsa to the mixture. And I guarantee you, you will feel so much better because you did it your way. And that's the only way that you know how. And every single person here that you're watching did it their way. So that is basically going to wrap things up. But before we go, I do want to, give you guys an opportunity to shout out, plug, whatever it is that you're doing. Aaron, we'll start with you before the Zoom police come and take you away. What do you want to share with everyone?
Oh my gosh, let me do it quickly. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for having me on this panel. I think this is a great conversation. Yeah, just keep, stay in touch with what we're doing at XSET, stay in touch, what I'm doing with Puma, stay in touch with what I'm doing in the broadcast space. And also I am working on a project/program that will help with bringing more people in, diverse people with diverse backgrounds in for broadcasting, as well as other avenues. That is all I can say, but that will be announced within the next couple of months.
Awesome.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, well, if you need someone, hit me up. You got my number. And I'm going back to New York to pick up the package. I went to my old address, so doing it just for you, Aaron.
You're finally gonna go get it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm going back. All right, Degon, what about for you, brother? What shout outs you got?
Yeah, I think I'm working on it's a pretty diverse cast, and I love it a lot. PUBG Mobile has their North America's Pro League season 2, and if you look at the talent that's there, it's Seven Worlds Gaming, Glitter Explosion, myself, Zute, Hot Jukes, Paul and Barham, Todd Kill, and F. Dot. I'm missing someone, Mustache Dave. So it is just a unique broadcast set in which in the future should be and can be normal, right? Where it's a lot of representation, a lot of Latino representation. And I'm hoping that that can be an example for things moving forward. You can catch me in a lot of the work that I'm doing, whether it's in League of Legends, whether it's PUBG Mobile, whether we're moving beyond esports. I love sports. I love voiceover, specifically in the entertainment world, at twitter.com/Degon.
Boom. Nailed it. Gabby, close us out.
Yeah, best thing is to follow me on socials. My Twitter is LaTigress, because I do a lot of work with the LCS, but I do a lot of work outside of that too. So you can follow it there. I am proud to be a part of a lot of the broadcasts recently. For instance, working a collegiate event with Evil Geniuses that had an extremely diverse talent lineup, actually. Myself and Crumbs were casting, both Latinx. So been really happy with getting to be a part of broadcasts like that are taking that initiative to move forward in the space in such a fashion. But yeah, lots of projects and things coming up that, can't say now, but I'll say on those socials when they do get announced, and that's where you'll see it. So boom.
Don't you just love how that works? We can't say it. I mean, we're just working. We just want to share it with everyone.
Yeah, Here are all these things. I'll tell you about them eventually.
On Twitter. Well, folks, you can go ahead and follow me at GoldenBoyFTW. And for anyone who is watching this that is, thinking about getting involved in esports, wants to work in this space, just simply reach out to me there. Tell me that you watch this and that you have questions. I have no problem helping you out. I know that folks like me can't do this forever. So the best thing that I can do is leave this industry, leave this community in the best way possible. And that is trying to just prop up as many amazing talents as we possibly can. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I do want to thank, G4, of course, for making this happen. And of course, the Latinx and gaming community and everyone for supporting this. Let's continue this conversation past Hispanic Heritage Month. This is stuff that should happen all the time, every time. We should constantly have this conversation, and we should all feel empowered to be able to talk about this regularly. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we appreciate you, and we'll see you soon. Take care.